Let's talk a little bit about the embodied energy dimension that we use in Brick Eagle projects. Now, what is embodied energy? To me, it is basically four dimensions. The dimension one is there are natural resources that the earth has. So we have to excavate those materials. And so there is energy used in the process of excavation of those materials. Second, we need energy to convert sometimes natural ore into a finished product. So there is energy that is being used for conversion or manufacturing of the materials that we need to use for the construction. The third is we need to transport that particular materials from wherever it is. Let's say from Rajasthan, we want marbles, or let us say we need Athangudi tiles, or we need Mangalore tiles. It has to come from Mangalore or elsewhere. So there is transportation energy. It's called the grey energy. Then there is, of course, the on-site energy. Okay, so it's not like we can just take it and just plonk it and it's done. In some cases, we need some process to be done on the construction materials once they get planted or put or laid at the site, at our construction site. For instance, mosaic tiles or vitrified tiles. So there is some polishing that needs to be done, or there's some processing that we need to do on top of that. So those are the four dimensions. There's excavation, manufacturing, grey, and on-site process energy. What's wrong with this? Why can't we use a high embodied energy? There is a problem. The problem is India is primarily a coal-based, coal-dependent energy country. Okay. Now, what's wrong with that? You need to understand that 1 kilojoule of energy that we need, okay, or you convert that into, let's say, about 800 or about 1 kilowatt of energy that we need out of the burning of this coal, we are going to be sending out 1 kilogram of carbon emissions. That's huge. We used about 1 trillion units of energy last year. So that means we have released, unfortunately, about 1 trillion kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That's huge, isn't it? Take an aeroplane, for instance. Let's say that aeroplane carries about 300 passengers. Now, with the check-in baggage of about 20 kgs per person, with about maybe 7 to 10 kgs of carry-in baggage, and with an individual weight of approximately 70 to 80 kg per person, so you are talking something like about 30 tons of just passenger weight. Okay. Then there is, 60 to 70 to maybe 100 to 200 tons, depending upon the aircraft that the passengers going in. So you're talking phenomenal amount of weight that is being lifted and that carries these passengers. Now, what is the weight of a building? This is something that you need to really think about. When you do, or when you aspire for 1,000 square feet building, so you're going to be consuming about anywhere between 30 tons to about 100 tons of materials in your building. And can you imagine how much of carbon emissions that building is going to directly and indirectly emit to the atmosphere? What's wrong with these carbon emissions? There is something very stark about this. Our planet is a sealed planet. Nothing escapes from this planet. Okay? There is not a drop of water that escapes. There is not an ounce of air that goes out of our planet. Okay? It is watertight, airtight planet. The only thing that comes away or outside of this planet is the sun's energy. Okay? And whatever we have has to stay within this planet. So it's like a bag of chips. How long can you go on eating from this bag? You cannot run a linear system on a finite set of resources. This mathematical principle is very true for our planet. We can't go on consuming these resources forever and ever. Okay, it's not one of those love stories, romantic stories where people live forever happy, the rest of their lives. This is a dying planet. because we are now consuming more than what the planet can offer us. Like Gandhiji once said, we have enough resources for man's need, but we don't have enough resources for man's greed. There are two major carbon sinks that this earth has naturally providing for us. One is the ocean. The other one is the forest. You know about what's happening to the forest cover. We are losing several thousand hectares of forest cover practically every day. Now, forest consumes only about 25-30% of carbon emissions that we send out to the atmosphere. We are the basic problem. Why? Because nature has designed us to be a carbon dioxide producing machine. Just the fact that I'm living, I'm breathing, I'm going to be producing so many kilograms of carbon dioxide every day, and I consume oxygen. Okay. And so these trees can convert this oxygen into carbon dioxide at some point of time during the day or the night, and reverse it during the day. Okay, so they're naturally designed by nature to consume carbon dioxide, but that's only about 25% of the time, 25% of the quantity of carbon dioxide that we emit. The oceans are the biggest carbon sinks. Okay, and the amount of carbon emissions that we have now produced, especially in the last about 100 years, since we started using fossil fuel, okay, diesel, petrol, petroleum products, and so on and so forth, and cement and steel and concrete and so on and so forth. So there is, of course, there are other animals like cattle that produce huge amount of these, greenhouse gas emissions. But that's really very minimum, if you really ask me. We can do something about what emissions we produce, and the oceans have reached its limit. It can no more absorb the entire 75% of the emissions or 70% of the emissions that we send out. It reaches its limit, let's say, by September or October. So it's really 1/4 of the emissions that we send out just stays as carbon emissions there. Okay, and that really means that we are depleting our environment. We're killing our own environment. There is no species in this world that kills in its own environment more than humans. At Brick Eagle, we are conscious about it. We are trying to do whatever little we can to make sure that the environment that we are building our buildings on, and the entire industry looks up to us, and we want to set an example for others to follow. We want to see what we can do to protect the environment that that is protecting us, that is preserving us, and thereby give better products, higher quality products at perhaps an affordable rates to our market, to our customers. Thank you very much for having me on the show.